We are live.
Very good.
A very warm welcome to the listeners of Ambedkar Karwan tonight. We have a very special guest, Brother Runoko Rashidi. He is in fact a well-known figure in the veteran Ambedkarite circles. And today is a very special day also because we are going to greet him on his 66th birthday. So, brother, happy birthday to you. May you live long.
Thank you.
May you live long for for the movement and for our people across the world, and we wish you a long life.
Thank you, brother.
Welcome, brother. Always welcome. So before I start off with discussing issues with brother Runoko Rashidi tonight, I would like to just give a few words of introduction to what Runoko Rashidi means to our people. You know, when we were growing up, like when I was growing up, we used to receive a magazine, Dalit Voice, which was started from Bangalore by V.T. Rashekar. And like 20 years back, those ideas that we were receiving from the African American brother Runoko Rashidi, we were always spellbound by his ideas and his love for the community. And I would personally say that that was sort of the first time I was hearing about the African movement and brother his work. And we were so fond of reading his articles then that we had this kind of an image of somebody who is really creating the bridges between the communities. And now when we look back, we see that he's one of the persons who has done this very wonderful foundational work to set up the sort of communication channels that we see today in our communities. I can say a lot about him. There is a lot to say about him. He is somebody who has taken deep interest into the history from the point of view of the Africans, not only in America, not only in the African continent itself, but also elsewhere. He has tried to find the presence of the Africans all over the places. Now it might be the present day Pakistan, or it might be India, Indonesia, Philippines. He has gone everywhere and tried to really collate, document the Black presence throughout the world. He is also a very good writer and an essayist. And one of the remarkable things that he has done back then is to produce a documentary on untouchables. And I'm sure that might be one of the first visual sort of a presentation of what is happening in India in terms of the term that he described, the Black untouchables of India, to the Western African world about the plights of the untouchabilities, the kind of problems they go through, the kind of discrimination they face. So brother has really devoted his life to this kind of bridging the communities, reaching out wherever possible. And first time he came to India, that was in 1987, right, brother?
That's correct.
He came to India in 1987. Then he after a decade he came in 1998, and then in 1999 he came. And I think his another visit is long due, brother. Your another visit is a long due. So I can go on and on talking about him, but I would like to say that he's also somebody who has devoted his life to what is called Africology. And he has been, some of the documents that he collected, the rare photographs, even from the Buddhist histories. He has gone to Ajanta, collected this Dark Princess of Ajanta photos, the Black Buddha. So he is a pioneer of a lot of things that we see today, which are so common in the communities these days. So before I request brother, I once again wish him a very happy birthday and a very long life for our communities. So brother, can you please tell us the background as to how you came in contact with the Ambedkarite movement 4 decades back? That's very unusual.
Well, the person that we really have to credit is the editor and founder of the publication Dalit Voice, and that is V.T. Rashekar. I cannot give enough credit to him In fact, he's the one who introduced the term or label the Black Untouchables of India.
Right, right.
Now, my interest, now you see, in the United States, where I'm located, we don't know much of anything at all about caste. We are taught to see things in terms of black and white. So everything, in my generation at least, we see things through a racial lens. So in the early 1970s, I was a university student, and I read a book called The Destruction of Black Civilization. And this book was very important because it was the first book that I read that said we had a history as African people before slavery and colonization, and that thousands and thousands of years ago, there was a Black population in India. Well, I was fascinated, and I began to study that. Somehow, through the writings of another African-American scholar, a man named Clyde Winters, I came across Dalit Voice. And I said, well, if Clyde's work can be published in it, I should start writing essays as well. So this is in the middle 1980s. One thing led to another, and I came to India in 1987. I only began to learn about Dr. Ambedkar through that experience. Now, today, or I should say tomorrow, is the birthday of one of our greatest leaders in the West, and his name is Marcus Garvey.
Yes, yes.
And Marcus Garvey's base was in Harlem, New York. Dr. Ambedkar lived in that same area when he attended Columbia University during the early period of that Garvey movement. So there's always been a connection between us, and I would like to see that connection brought much closer together.
Very, very important connection that we really have. And as you have come to India then, and you have traveled everywhere, and particularly you have traveled a lot in the southern part of our country, where you met a lot of people, you gave a series of lectures, and you met the people who were interested in the Black Panthers movement, and you also visited Delhi, you participated in several programs. So, brother, I would like to ask you, what was your experience then when you came as a young mind to the situation which you only heard of, and when you met people face to face? What was your experience then?
Now, I have been to, I think, about 125 countries in the last 20 years. And I've been to India 3 times. Yeah. India is the only place I've ever been where I felt like I had entered into another world. And just to walk down the street in a major city and see a herd of cows, or to see how, or to see how people reacted to my physical presence, and to learn about the horrors of untouchability, it was really, really, really shocking. Right. I went for the first time in 1987, and I saw things that I couldn't imagine. Right. And then in 1998, on my second trip, I actually left India feeling like there's no such thing as God. Right. Because if there was a compassionate God, no people would be forced to live like that. Right. So I've always said that the Dalits are the most oppressed people in the world. And that's saying a lot. And so to actually be there and physically see it was shocking and revolting, but also very encouraging, because I met people who were the lowest of the low, but who had their dignity and their pride and their strength. And so I was very inspired by my experiences with the Dalits in general. Right. I think that's very remarkable. And the year you came down to India, and now when we are talking in 2020, a lot of things have moved ahead in terms of awareness. And that was a period when you came to India in 1987. People in India also didn't have access to a lot of the writings and speeches of Baba Saheb Ambedkar then. And after 1991, when the volume started coming up, the blue books started coming up, and you can see that the Ambedkarite movement has just blown into you can say an explosion. There is no political party in India which can not but take his name or put up his poster on there.
things. So there has been a lot of these things. So your experiences of 80s, and 90s are so valuable for.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Please.
How much has the physical condition of the Dalits changed in the last 30 years? I mean, you tell me about the awareness, but what is the actual social status? Has it fundamentally changed in the last 30 years, 40 years?
Fundamentally, it has not changed. There is no radical change as such, but there has been changes, like there was an emergence of a political party called the BSP.
Right.
And it began in 1984, 1986, and then it has the party ruled the biggest state of India, the Uttar Pradesh, 4 times. And one time, the party has a huge majority. And
okay.
The chief minister ruled for about 4 years, 5 years, with a complete control over the state. And the civil rights groups have risen everywhere, and there is a kind of a voice of the Ambedkarites that can be heard. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so there is, of course, the voice has increased manifold. When you came, the voice was very feeble, and now the voice is, the people are roaring for their rights everywhere. So the mobilization has gone on to a very different level now. But it's a long way to go, as you know, that the caste is so entrenched in the minds of the people, and even the practice of untouchability is so rampant even today. So in 2006, there was a book published called The Untouchability in Rural India, and it conclusively proved that in the rural India, the practice of untouchability even remains in different forms and different sites. So, for example, the postman will refuse to go to the houses of the Dalits to deliver the letter. And then there were another studies which has also conclusively proved that the practice of untouchability in different forms exist in the urban areas also.
Give me an example.
Like, for example, brother, if you are an educated Dalit and if you are trying to seek an apartment for a rent in cities like Bombay or in Ahmedabad, in Surat, so people will be very curious to know about your caste, and they will try to find out what is your caste. And if they know that you are from the so-called Dalit untouchable background, they will find various pretexts to not to let you rent the place.
I see.
And different forms, like in the offices, people will try to look down upon you, saying, they won't speak directly to you, but they have this very deep bias in their minds, where they would try to play it out in the working situation, and so on and so forth.
All right, here's another question. I think I'm going to interview you. If Dr. Ambedkar could speak to us right now, what would he say? Would his views on untouchability and caste, they would have evolved, or they would be exactly where they were in 1956?
He would be happy with certain things. He will be very sad with certain things. For example, the way he has expected the educated class among us to pay back to the communities, sacrifice everything that they have. So he'll be little bit disappointed with that, little bit, because there are people who are doing a lot, even who are well-to-do. But certainly he will not be happy, because he will be very sad to see the atrocities which are taking place all over the country. Even in Tamil Nadu, during the lockdown, there were more than 40, 50 atrocities, the caste-based atrocities, and also throughout India. So I think his feelings will be mixed, but mostly towards, I guess, people might correct me, he will not be happy with the situation.
It seems like when you talk about atrocities, they are similar to what in the United States we would call lynchings. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, lynching, and here we have a term now, mob lynching. A few years back, Dalits were, in North India, they were lynched because the caste Hindus felt that they are skinning the cow. So, in fact, the lynchings are not new to our country, even today.
Okay.
Recently.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Welcome, brother. Always welcome. Because, you should know that you are one of our role models. Like, when we were young, we used to read, whatever you wrote. So, brother, now you have been working in America among our communities, African communities there. You have been traveling, as you said, more than nearly 150 countries, maybe more. And how do you see that this solidarity between the so-called people of color, to use the word, um, how is the solidarity increasing, when you started off and now after 40 years, when you look back, do you see any change in the awareness of the people that you talk to about the situations in India, and whether there is a kind of an increase in awareness about the problems in India? What do you see? How do you see, as an activist, as a person who was always on the fields, but at the same time dealing with complex ideas? How do you see it?
I think that the change has been very minor. And that's very, very sad. But again, we are, first of all, most African Americans are very, very limited in their knowledge about anything outside of the United States. So what I am what is called a Pan-Africanist, a Garveyite. My job, my plan is to try to unite Black people, African people all over the world. And I always saw the Dalits as a part of that community. Right. But I also realized that that being a Dalit or understanding Dalits is very and that's why I find myself asking you, and again, if, for example, I see that internet is a little unstable here.
No problem.
For example, on my Facebook page and in my lectures, I show pictures of Black people in India, mostly tribals or Adivasis. And people are not able to distinguish between, in other words, put it this way, most people don't know really what a Dalit or an untouchable is. Right. So it's very, very basic. In fact, for the people on this side of the water who are listening, explain what is a Dalit, what is an untouchable. Give us a basic explanation that I can use that you would be comfortable with and people would understand.
Right. So you still see that there is a gap, a huge gap between what you envision and what is out there in the reality.
Very much so.
Right. So, brother, can you tell us what can be the ways and means to build this, the great gap between our communities out there and the communities out here in India?
I think that what we're doing right now is very, very important and actually even historic. I think that we have to really just get down to the basics. Tell us right now, what is a Dalit? What is an untouchable for people who don't know, who are in the United States? Let me hear directly from you.
Okay, so brother Rashidi, the problem of untouchability, what is called untouchability, has the historic origin in the so-called Brahminical texts like the Purush Sukta in Riga Veda, where it has been said that the human beings are produced from the different parts of the body organs of Brahma, the mythical being. Okay, and this is called what it can be called the system of graded inequality, where the inequality is graded, and the untouchables, though they are not part of the Varna system, they have been considered to be lower than the 4 Varnas at the bottom of it. So historically, they have been looked down as the untouchables, and means if you touch them, their touch will pollute you. But not only they were treated as untouchables, but in some cases unapproachables. Even if you approach them, your body will be polluted, and in some cases also unseeables. Okay, so if you lay your eyes on them, that will also pollute you. So that was kind of a Brahminical Hindu idea, which has a huge sanctity of the religion, according to which the people were treated as untouchables, as the polluted people, or as the even we can say lesser humans. And their population is huge. Now we reckon
how large? How many?
Maybe at present, the population of United States, 300 million people.
You think that's an accurate number? 300 million untouchables in India.
See, if we say 1.4 billion people in India right now, and 20% according to the sample survey, national sample survey data, is 20% of them are the untouchables or Dalits. Okay. And about 9% tribals, Adivasis, as you mentioned. So, you know, that figure might be more than even 300. If you take Dalits and tribals together, that's more than 300 million people.
But untouchability was abolished in the Indian Constitution.
It was abolished, but, you know, it's so much into the hearts of the people because they believe that it's their religious practice that they should practice it. So the laws have changed. And even the practice of untouchability is punishable by the punishable offense. Despite of that, it still continues to haunt the people. So if or people out there would like to know about the practice of untouchability, is like one has to think in terms of the Manu Smriti. So Manu is equivalent to what you can say the Jim Crow. The laws of Jim Crow, the segregation, that the people will live outside the main localities. There will be segregated things for them. They cannot enter the public places. They cannot enter the temples, and they cannot marry with people outside their caste. If they do it, they will be killed, lynched. Even today, it is done. So if untouchable boy is in love with a caste Hindu girl, and you know, if they are found, there are cases like in my state, a boy was in love with a girl from the so-called upper caste. His eyes were gouged out. Recently, like it's like 4 years back. So you know, if you want to relate it with our the problems that our brothers and sisters faced in America, I think the near equivalent will be comparing the Manu Smriti. There was this ancient Brahminical saint who codified these laws into this kind of the degrading system of despising the human beings and lifting some human beings above.
Now, what is the difference, or is there a difference between an untouchable and a Dalit? Tell us about the relevance of those terms, please.
Right. So Dalit was a term which came into which came to define the untouchables. So, for example, the meaning of the word Dalit is broken people, grounded one, whose humanity is shattered. Okay, the people whose humanity is completely shattered. So the Dalit is now the word chosen by the people who were trying to fight the oppression of caste after Baba Saheb Ambedkar. And even when he was there, this term was used. So it is a broad term where, you know, any oppressed community can be included. So, for example, if we talk about our black brothers and sisters who are oppressed there, from our point of view, they are also Dalits, grounded one, broken one. Their individuality, their humanity shattered into pieces. So this is the meaning of the word Dalit, brother.
So untouchable now is considered an offensive word. If someone calls you an untouchable, you are angry, you are offended?
Yes. Very much so, very much so. Not like America, because in America, untouchable is somebody who cannot touch, whom you cannot touch. They are above everybody. But in India, untouchable is somebody who is completely down, lesser human.
So the word untouchable for you would be like the N word is in the United States?
Yes.
It's a pejorative term.
Yan word for us. It's like calling our brothers and sisters a Negro there, a nigger there, and calling untouchable here. And people try to patronize the communities. Like person like Gandhi, he used to call Harijan, which means the illegitimate son of the gods. That was a connotation for this. Like, you know, in the United States, our people were called boy, oh boy, hey boy, like that.
Now, how much of untouchability, how much of caste is based on race? And what is the relation? Maybe the better. Okay, I'll just let you answer that question. How do you address the issue of race and untouchability in caste? Please.
We have been dwelling on this question for a long time, and we found that the original classification, this graded inequality, has the name called Varna Varna system. Now Varna means color. And when this four the parts of the Varna system, they had the color codes. So for the top Brahmins, they had a code, white code. And for the Shudras, which is like 50% of India's population, Shudras, and below that Ati Shudra, Dalits and Adivasis, they had been given the black code. So if you look at the race and caste in terms of the color, there is certainly definitely color attached to the caste. Okay. And now, as we know that there is an argument going on where the racial form of oppression is also looked at from the caste perspective. There is a new book that has just come up now.
This argument is going on in India itself, in the community.
In the community, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
We have been always looking at you, brothers and sisters there, as to what lessons we can learn from you. and I think you came and you inaugurated the Kerala Panthers, Kerala Dalit Panthers, and so I'm sure that time when you were young, people used to look at you as a panther coming from United States to India to build.
Well, my vision, my dream is Black people all over the world uniting. Right. And I consider you a brother, and I consider the Dalits my sisters and brothers in my family. So that's the message that I try to preach all of the time. So my job is to do the best I can in slowly educating people who don't oftentimes see the nuances. Now, right. I know people all the time who tell me there are no Black people in India. Right. And they may be Black, but do they see themselves as Black, as though we really don't want to unite? And that's the kind of barrier that we have to break down. Also, in countries like Trinidad, in Suriname, in Guyana, and Fiji, there are tensions, even in the United States and Africa, there are tensions between Black traditional Black communities, African Americans in this case, right. and people from India. And so right. people a lot of times are not able to see the distinctions. And I must confess, it is a bit confusing to us who will see things in the most simplistic terms. We live in a society in the United States where we have a kind of dumbing down, and people are taught not to think, but just to react and to emote and to feel. Right. And it's very dangerous, or can have very dangerous consequences. And we are largely victims of that.
Right. I think that's a very interesting point that you have just shared, brother. Here, as you are aware that the color prejudice runs very deep. So if you are having a darker skin, then there are, like in America, people try to whiten themselves. So here also there are creams where people try to apply, and in the marriages, people try to be so color biased. They would like to see that the person that they would like to marry have the fair complexion. So you will see that in the matrimonial advertisements that a fair girl would like to seek a marriage alliance, and so on and so forth. And some of the people from the African origin who have traveled to India, even the professors and very well educated, very intelligent people from our communities, particularly from African American backgrounds, they have faced a lot of discriminations. There was a professor from Columbia University, I think. He has written about his experiences on the streets of Delhi as to how he was, mocked upon and looked down by the Indians. So the color is very much a reality in this country.
Now, many people would say that the reason you are so color conscious in India is because of the British, and that they brought their racial attitudes to India with them. But I don't think that's accurate. What is your view on that?
That's not accurate, because the color has been a problem. You can see the problem of color in the Indian history. So as you are a student of South India, and you know that the people, particularly from the upper caste background from the North India, they considered themselves to be Caucasians, whites, and they decided they created this kind of a theory of Aryan supremacy, where we are the birds of the same flock, and the so-called upper caste Indians, they even claim that they are whites in order to seek the citizenship of United States. And they also wrote letters to the American governments that the people living in the south of India, they are the Black people. They are not really whites. So, history has it that the color is not something imported. The idea of color is not something imported from the outside.
Now, is it possible, and I just want you to respond to this because I posted something on my Facebook page that was very controversial. It is possible to be black and a Brahmin, correct?
I know. I have. It's true. It's correct. But what happens is, even the colors are mixed. So, for example, now there is so much of miscegenation, intermarriages, exchange of blood between the people. So, just like what is happening in America. So it's very difficult to find out the pure blood or the pure castes, isn't it? So in South India, there are a lot of Brahmins who look very dark. But generally, the color white goes with the Brahmins.
I posted a photograph of a black Brahmin on my Facebook page the other day, and people were very angry about that. Now, because a lot of us are talking about Tamil Nadu and the Brahmins because of Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Of course, you know that, and her mother. I thought it would be an opportunity to educate people about caste and untouchability and race in India. And I think I really alienated a number of people, and I apologize for that.
No. Actually, people are very, because of this rise in the Hindu nationalism and the kind of power that they have.
And this is the BJP.
BJP, yeah, BJP.
But they have been in power for a long time now, right? It's something like 30 years.
They are having a second term of power. They had ruled for 5 years, and now there's another 5 years to go. And 2019 they came to power again. And it will go till 2024.
And they are a Hindu nationalist movement.
Hindu nationalist movement came from the very strong sort of ideas of the supremacy of certain castes.
Okay.
So that's a very tricky sort of an area. So from the Indian perspective, it's still a very, very tricky issue. So I think we can sort it out afterwards. Not a problem.
Okay.
People love you here, so I don't think these controversies matter a lot.
Oh, I'm not worried about it. It's okay.
So, brother, I think the audience here will be very interested to know from you. What do you think about the life and mission of Baba Saheb Ambedkar?
Oh, I love him. I think he's one of the greatest leaders, not just in modern times, but humanity has ever produced. Right. So I have nothing but positive things to say about his fierce will and determination, his genius, his vision. I think I have 10 volumes, 8 or 10 volumes of his work that I got in India. So Ambedkar is one of our greatest leaders, and I have tremendous respect and admiration for him.
Right. I think now there are 22 volumes. So if you need me to
22.
Yeah. If you need me to send them, I will be very happy to find a way to send them across to you.
Yes.
Brother.
I think that he also ties us together.
Yeah.
Now, Marcus Garvey, who I was talking about, the great leader from the Western world, Jamaica, and Dr. Ambedkar, both read a very important book by an African American called Up from Slavery, and were very much inspired by that. And I know Dr. Ambedkar he corresponded with another African American intellectual named W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yes.
And so I wish more of us knew more about Dr. Ambedkar and less about Gandhi. No, that's not true. We need to know about Gandhi, but we need to know the real Gandhi, not just the Gandhi that we see in the movie. But I think we would all benefit from Dr. Ambedkar's teaching.
I will just share one incident. I have shared it often. One of our friends, his name is an African American professor in Indiana University. He comes to India often, brings African American professors now from last few years. So in one of the conferences, he said that we have Martin Luther King, we have Brother Malcolm, we have Thurgood Marshall, we have W.E.B. Du Bois, and all these beautiful, very important people in our movement. And you can combine their shades together and you get Baba Saheb Ambedkar.
Yes, I think so. I think even more than that.
More than that.
Garvey, we have Elijah Muhammad, we have Frederick Douglass. And yes, Dr. Mbakar is a composite of all of those men. So now, here's a question for you.
Yes, brother.
What about great women, Dalit women, or heroic women in Indian history, or even in the movement today?
There are a lot, because as you know that Baba Saheb Ambedkar linked the emancipation of from the caste problem with the emancipation of the women.
Very good.
You cannot annihilate the caste without annihilating the bondage in which our women live. So the caste is basically an endogamous system where the groups are closed through the marriages, and that has a bearing on controlling the sexuality of the women here and different forms of operation. So you cannot have liberation from the caste without the liberation from the patriarchal attitude.
Very good, very good.
So we have.
What about all the rapes in India? You hear so many stories about horrific accounts of rape in India. How would you comment on that?
As you know that this is a culture which has always treated women as inferior, and women in general, but women from the untouchable communities, they feel they have a lot of they have to face a lot of discrimination in terms of the caste, in terms of the class, poverty, in terms of the gender. So the rapes are happening all the time, to humiliate women, to humiliate the men from their communities, and so on and so forth. So it's a gross violence that has been taking place. So as we are talking today, there must be somewhere, I do not have the data at my hand, but every 18 minutes a Dalit woman is raped, something like that.
Wow. Every 10 minutes.
18 minutes or something. I do not have the data, I can find out and give it to you. But it's very frequent. It's not something like one of the events. It's like inbuilt into the caste violent structure that the women, and particularly the women who are working in the farms, agricultural farms, and sometimes they live like a bonded labor and at the mercy of their caste Hindu masters, and so on and so forth. So the problem is there. The problem of rape is there. But there are some very remarkable women which has arisen in the communities. One of them is definitely Mayawati, who has ruled one of the biggest states in our country for a long time, and she's very strong. The law and order situation in the state is horrible, in one of the backward states of India. And, they are everywhere. There are a lot of women who are now leading from the front.
Okay. All right. And one more question. What about the pandemic? The coronavirus, how is it affecting the Dalit community?
I think the Dalits are the worst hit by the coronavirus, brother. They are the worst hit by the coronavirus because what has happened is the lockdown was so sudden that the people couldn't plan. So a lot of people who are working as laborers in the cities, millions of them, they had nowhere to go because the construction site stopped in the big cities. So people walked like 1,000 kilometers to reach to their places. No food, and no conveyance to reach to their places. So the plights of the Dalits was so huge, and a lot of them, majority of us, depends on the daily wages. So if your job is gone for a month, you face a horrible economic situation.
What part of India which is the most difficult part of India for Dalits? Is there a particular state or region where untouchability is more harsh than others?
It's an all India phenomena. But if we go by the state data, you can see Uttar Pradesh, even the state I live, Maharashtra, Bihar. So we cannot say that this is like all over the places. Even in Tamil Nadu, so-called very economically developed state, even in Kerala, which is considered to be one of the paragon of the development, in everywhere the places. So very difficult. There are rankings which, according to the crimes data committee collected by the government, but you can say that it's everywhere, brother, all over the countries. And even why we have to go to stay in India, even in America, there is a Cisco case where the where the upper caste managers oppressed their subordinate on the caste prejudice, and it has migrated now everywhere. It is there.
The same would be for Nepal and Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Yes,
Muslim,
yes.
and they are also Muslim countries, Bangladesh and Pakistan.
Yes.
But untouchability can still be said to exist there.
Yes. In Nepal and in Bangladesh, and also in Pakistan, and Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan. They have been like there is a problem of untouchability, a big problem of untouchability.
Same with Sri Lanka.
Yes, among those people who migrated from Tamil Nadu, and they are living on the plantations on the hills.
All right.
There is a problem of untouchability. Definitely.
All right, my brother, I've been able to ask you a lot of questions, and I appreciate that, because it's good for me to hear it directly from you as I try to teach and explain to sisters and brothers. Do you have any additional questions for me or from the audience, perhaps?
Let me check, because I definitely have one question. While you answer that, I will check on the Facebook whether there are other questions for you.
That's fine.
And the question is like, you have this vision of Africocentric vision.
Okay.
And you have been involved in that movement for a long time, creating narratives and finding the historical resources to push your point. So, but for as we look at it from India to Africa, we see that there is not much awareness in the African continent about what's happening with the Dalits, except now that there was a campaign in Ghana in response to a statue in 2016 that was given by the Indian government to the Ghana University, and there was Professor Cambon, who started a campaign, Gandhi Must Fall. So, like what I'm saying is, like we in the era of Black Lives Matter, we see that the movement has, international, in Belgium, everywhere people are now standing up. Whatever, we don't know the result of it, but there is certainly a kind of enthusiasm for that. So, in your experience of last 40 years, how do you see this African consciousness, Pan-African consciousness, Africa-centric movements are developing? If they are, how they are developing?
It's developing rapidly, and it's very, very positive. African Americans, our ancestors, as you know, were taken away from Africa and enslaved and brought to America. So there's always been a division between African Americans and Africa. There's always a kind of, I guess you could say, a dichotomy. We love Africa, but Africa is far away. And we wonder about our relationship to Africa. And then at the same time, we are proud in our own way of African identity. And you see it in little ways. For example, the names we give our children. One of the very common names now for an African boy is Kobe. The basketball player Kobe Bryant. Now, I don't know if he had any African consciousness at all, but he had the name. A few years ago, there was the film Black Panther about this mythical African king.
Very popular movie,
And that really resonated with African Americans, because deep down inside, we all want to feel proud of ourselves. We all want to feel like we come from people who gave something important to the world. And so I think the level of consciousness is good, and it's growing. I'm very proud of the people who have been demonstrating in the streets. It was sparked mostly because of the murder of George Floyd. But I think that people in general are protesting against injustice. And that injustice takes many forms. And now more and more people see Gandhi not as a saint, but as a sinner who had contemptuous attitudes about Black people, who was apparently the enemy of the Dalits or untouchables of India. And so I was glad to see that statue come down. Now, the reason Gandhi is important to many African Americans is because of the association with Martin Luther King. And the strategies of nonviolence. I asked you early on if you think Dr. Ambedkar's views would have evolved over the last 60, 70 years since his death. But I would ask that same question about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. If they were alive today,
Yeah.
how would they see the world differently than than they seem to have seen it in the 1960s? Now, I'll say this last thing.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King and Malcolm were really growing. They were in their 30s when they were murdered. They were only in their 30s. They were young men.
Yeah.
Before Martin Luther King died, he was talking about Black Power.
Yeah.
He was talking about against the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think that he was moving ahead, and I think that he would have disavowed his relationship with Gandhi over time.
I think that's very correct. That's very correct, brother. Because now there are new evidences which says that when Martin Luther King came to India in Kerala, he was called the untouchable, and he was so shocked. And then he went back to America and he said that yes, indeed we are the untouchables. And when he went to Delhi and met Nehru, he was so amazed with the provisions of the constitution in India, and they were so progressive, according to Martin Luther King. And they say that the poor people's campaign that he launched at the end of before he died was a little bit informed by his reading of the Constitution of India, but unfortunately nobody told him that there was a man like Babasaheb Ambedkar who has really. So we see that there was a kind of an upper caste hegemony over this narrative, where they tried to link the colony with the category of race, and not the category of race with the category of caste, and slavery untouchability. So now I think our generation needs to really clarify that, and you will be very happy to know that Martin Luther King's son came to India, and he gave a public speech where he said that his father and Dr. Ambedkar were the revolutionary brothers.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Revolutionary brothers. So I think I think among the communities up there is a lot of if not mass change is transformation is going on, but there are a lot of cracks in the consciousness of the people where the things are beginning to happen.
Very good.
So let me check whether there are any questions. But before we conclude, I would like to ask you one question. As an elder of the movement, in both America and in India as well, as an elder guardian sort of a personality of the our people. I don't know. I'm sorry if you don't like the word, but I would say that you are.
It's okay. I'm comfortable with it.
You are the elder in the movement, and you have really devoted your life to the communities everywhere. And as you speak, we can see that your heart lies among the Ambedkarite communities in our country. So, what kind of a message that you would like to give to the young people, both here and in America and everywhere you go? Because you have developed this network of beautiful friendships all over the globe. So as an elder brother in the movement, elder to all of us, most of us, in fact, what kind of a message that you would like to give to us?
I think there are a number of messages. Let me give you what I think are the most important ones that I've learned from my role in the movement. I began I get what we call the movement when I was a university student, 17, 18 years old, and I turned 66 today. So I've been doing this for the better part of 50 years. Right. There have been times when I've had my doubts and I wondered, but I've somehow managed to keep going. One of the most important things is to realize that no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try, you can't do it by yourself. We must be organized. And that's one of the key things. Number two, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you work, no matter how much energy you put into it, changes are not going to come immediately. That the revolution that we're talking about, empowerment, the breaking of slavery, is going to take generations of struggle. But you have to do your part now. Number three, don't wait for our people to unite. A lot of times we say that Black people have to unite, we have to get together. This is true, but that doesn't mean you can't begin to act on a day-to-day basis about your contribution to the struggle. And then the last thing I would say is we must, again, not get frustrated when we don't see immediate results.
Right.
The problems that we have today didn't start today, and they didn't start yesterday, and they're not going to end tomorrow. So prepare yourself for generations of struggle. and don't give up and throw in the towel when the results are not immediate. Those are the lessons that I've learned from being in the movement for a long time.
Right. As I encourage people to ask you questions. So if you have another 10 to 15 minutes, brother, I can take the questions. It depends on your time. How are you?
No, let's do it. Let's do it.
So one of the questions that is being asked is, what is the relevance of Dr. Ambedkar for the movement of Black Lives Matter? And how Martin Luther King for the struggle of liberation of Dalits? Like, not Martin Luther King, but the host of our people there, the leaders there, like W. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, and all our great leaders there. So what is the relevance of Baba Ambedkar to the Black Lives Matter movement, and what is the relevance of our great elders from United States to the people of India? Like, that we were inspired by the Black Panthers movement very much here.
Exactly.
So please.
Well, what I would say is that we can take inspiration, all of us, from Dr. Ambedkar based on the times that he lived in. I mean, it's difficult now, but I've read his autobiography and I see what he had to face on a day-to-day basis. And so if he could stay strong all that time and not lose faith, I think the rest of us can do that. A very dignified man, a great intellectual, like a lot of, we say in the United States, it's a myth. If you want to hide something from a Black person, put it in a book. So we are encouraged not to read, not to study. Dr. Ambedkar was a great intellectual, the greatest intellectual in India, so we can be inspired by that. But I think that the most important thing, lessons in terms of Martin Luther King and Dr. Ambedkar, is that the struggles are a global struggle.
Yes.
That the struggle to end injustice in India is not just, I mean, we are fighting the same battle all over the world. And we have different battle fronts, different areas where we have what we might call hotspots. But for me, studying about Dr. Ambedkar and Dr. King, ultimate message is that we are one. We are the same in different parts of the world. And we must talk to each other and love each other and try to understand each other and integrate the struggles. I think those are the important lessons.
That's a very, very beautifully put, brother. That's very wonderfully put. This problem of Gandhi is very critical here, because as we know that there has been a kind of a propaganda by the government of India and even Christian missionaries to put Gandhi as, pose Gandhi as somebody who was the emancipator of the Dalits, but we know that he was somebody who has opposed the rights of the untouchables here, and therefore these questions always pop up all the time, like can you please deliberate more on Gandhi and African Americans sort of interaction, if anything, if you would like to add to that. You have already said.
I think that most African Americans view Gandhi as a kind of saint. And we are the victims of that kind of propaganda. But I think little by little, especially with the younger generation, they see Gandhi and other people that have been historically called our heroes as something as villainous. We can point to the example in the United States right now of Christopher Columbus. People say Columbus discovered America. But Columbus was also a racist who began the transatlantic slave trade. And the destruction of Native Americans. And so now you have a struggle all over the country to begin to pull down the statues of Columbus. Well, I think Gandhi is going to go down in history in a very similar way.
Just like Thomas Jefferson, his legacy is also being questioned. Woodrow Wilson.
Or George Washington.
And Woodrow Wilson, everybody is now being, questioned. And I think that's very, very important that we need to question this, and we need to really remove the well of
there you are
the faces. So brother, yes, brother, I'm very sorry that on short notice I invited you to call and you talk to people, and it's your birthday today. You have turned 66, and we all wish you
this was an introduction. And I didn't know, and I'm new to Zoom because of the pandemic just within the last month. I didn't know how it was going to go. But I think it has been a wonderful program. And as soon as it's over, I'm going to go to your Facebook page and website and share it with everybody that I know. I think that the most important thing that we can do is just talk to each other with love and patience and understanding. You don't have to be right all the time. You don't have to have the last word, but just communicate. And I think if we do that, we can really accomplish great things. And we've been able to have a good introduction this morning. And I hope we can do a series of these talks. In fact, what I would like to do is show some photographs perhaps the next time.
I got some photographs of yours and I'm going to share with the audience, because I think these are very important photographs that people need to look at. So,
all right, my brother.
Yeah. So, this is one of your photographs. Maybe.
Yes, it is. This is 1999. And that's a brother named Dalit Azimile and also Vici Rashekar putting a garland around a portrait, a photograph of Dr. Ambedkar. Yeah. And this is in New Delhi, India. And this was my last trip to India.
There is another photograph that I will bring it up. Let me check. There is another beautiful photograph that I would like people to see. Oh, where is it? Let me check. Oh, my thing. There was another photograph.
Mr. Rashekar wrote a book called Apartheid in India.
Right.
And he eventually changed the name to Dalit, the Black Untouchables of India.
Yeah.
And I wrote an introduction to that book. So I'm very proud of that.
Right. Unfortunately, I'm not able to find out the other photo, but
no, the next time.
Maybe next time. But it was a lovely photo. You are there with Baba Saheb Ambedkar's statue. So let me. So where was that?
That was in Aurangabad. That was also in 1999.
All right.
One thing I learned that if you want to get the Dalits on your side, you have to say good things about Dr. Ambedkar, and they will love you for
that. So brother, I put up your another photograph. Can you tell us about this photograph?
This photograph was at a reception in my honor in April 1999 in New Delhi, India.
Wow.
And that's Mr. Dalit Azimile, who was a member of the federal government at that time, and Vici Rashekar. So this is in New Delhi. And this is, I think, the first time this picture has been shown publicly.
Right. So let me put the photo. Let me go to stop share. Yeah. So, brother, why I was insisting on you, because I had this kind of a personal affiliation with you for last many years. Though we haven't met, but my brothers who have been reading your articles in Dalit Voice, our father used to get them, and we used to read them at our homes. And so we had this kind of association, though you didn't know about us, but I'm sure that those the readers of Dalit Voice then. I'm sure heard about you, and when I put up your poster in some of the groups, people responded that yes, he came and gave a talk here and talk there like that. So I think it's beautiful to connect with you now, and I think our caravan should go on forward, and maybe, as you said, this is the first of its kind of interaction between us. And
I hope so.
And let's plan a series, because we would like to learn so much from you about, our people out there everywhere.
Well, we need to learn from each other.
We have to learn from each other. So maybe we find another occasion also, maybe a series of talk with you. But before we conclude today, brother, what, like any concluding words for today's talk, your interaction with you, brother?
I would just say it's been an honor and a privilege. I've learned a lot. I think we've shared a lot of information. In fact, I would say that what we did this morning is historic. Now, if not for this pandemic, I wouldn't know anything about Zoom. And so I guess we can say that from the most difficult circumstances, we can extract something positive. And instead of seeing things as an obstacle, we see it as a stepping stone. We need to be aware that we are capable of bringing about change. That we just don't have to be victims all the time. That we can end our victimization. And what I see you doing is a part of that process. So I'm proud of you. Greetings to all the sisters and brothers in India and all over the world. And I love you. I love my sisters and brothers in India.
Likewise,
Dalits are my family.
Yeah, yeah. We all love you, and we are, I didn't know that it's your birthday today, but it's really auspicious that we could talk on your 66th birthday.
Yes, it is.
And it
Be well, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We wish you a long life and have a happy birthday. Thank you so much, brother. Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim. Take care. Bye-bye.